think we're good. Sorry, we we had one or two issues with these things. It can never be straightforward. Thank you for everyone that's joining again. We've got Charmaine joining, we've got Shanae joining, we've got Hetty joining, Brian, welcome back. Dominique, nice to have you on the session, Dominique. Fred, Helen, Dominique's going to ask a lot of difficult questions, I know, but we'll try our best between myself and Michelle to answer them, and there might even be a few trick questions as far as the food goes. Rosemary, welcome. Happy to have everyone back. Some new names as well for those on joining us on Facebook. Welcome to you guys as well. Most of you know the drill by now, but for those joining on Facebook, obviously we can't see your names or where you're from, but you guys can comment on Facebook and it'll get fed through to us. So we'll pick up on any of the comments and questions. For those joining on Zoom, welcome to comment, please do. If there's any questions, it's better to put them in the Q&A section, so I pick up on them straight away. Lynn just joined, Leon is joining, Nora, welcome everyone. So yeah, our last of 6 webinars kind of feels strange. We've spent hours and hours together, and I'm not sure what we'll be doing next week come this time, but anyway. Joined as per usual by head chef Annie and winemaker Michelle on the right hand side, with me presenting these, and we'll chop and change between ourselves. And yep, it's informal like every other week. It's lots of fun getting questions in. It actually makes life for us much easier when you guys ask questions, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't get to cover or don't think of. So please ask all those questions. Yeah, it's week 6. It's the last one. We started small with something like, I think it was 40 or 50. I can't even remember how many people we had on the first session. 2 weeks ago, we went over 1,000 people. Last week was just over 1,000 again. So yeah, we've from small beginnings, I think in total, and we'll calculate this and share it with you over the 6 webinars, probably reached more than 4,000 people watching and tasting along. So yeah, thanks for that. And my hope is that after all of this, we'll get to meet each other in person as well. So, but without any further ado, I see 1 or 2 more signing up. Welcome everyone. Pinot Noir tonight. But let's get going and let's talk Pinot Noir for a bit. I think most of us are ready to go. So I briefly introduced Pinot Noir last week, at the end of last week's session. Sorry, I just want to check that we are good to go. We're good to go. Yep. Sorry, we had some issues here getting everyone on board. But Pinot Noir, as I said, quite a tricky and a challenging grape to grow and a wine to make, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit more as we go along with the tasting. There is one saying when it comes to Pinot Noir, or not only Pinot Noirs, but you know, great wines in general, that the one thing all great wines in the world have in common is a view of the ocean. And just as a proof of that, this is our Pinot Noir overlooking the Moody Lagoon onto the Benguela Current, the Atlantic Ocean, passing by the property, a mere 2 kilometers from this vineyard to the ocean's tip. And just to give you an idea as how close we are to the ocean, our lowest vineyard is only about 2.7 meters above sea level. So yes, extremely marginal as to where you can have a vineyard. It's really pushing the boundaries of cool climate winemaking. But as I mentioned before, one of the advantages of making wines on the edge is wines with a true character and a unique personality to them. And therefore, obviously, the reason why we produce estate wines. Estate wines meaning it's wines made 100% from grapes grown on the property on Benguela Cove. So the reason being is that we want to share with you our unique location and this piece of earth and how our climate and soils and location interact with these various grapes, but also to preserve the Benguela Cove character and to share that in the glass. So the Pinot we're tasting tonight is part of our estate range. So we've touched on this before, but maybe for those that are joining for the first time, our estate range is dedicated to those vineyard sites and wines that need a little bit more time to develop and to age, maybe a little bit more time in bottle or in barrel in the winery. They're just a little bit slower in their evolution, and it's purely a function of the soils or the slopes on the property they planted on, where the Lighthouse Collection, which is another label we do, are those vineyards and those sites that are more expressive in terms of fruit, softer in tannin when it comes to the red wines. And so they're always a little bit younger in comparison to the estate wines that benefit from a little bit more time and maturation. So Pinot Noir, known all over in wine circles and all over the world. It's called the Heartbreak Grape. So why the Heartbreak Grape? The simple reason it being is that it does exactly that to many viticulturists and winemakers alike. A lot of people have a go at Pinot Noir, and more often than not, you end up in tears or with a broken heart. So why bother then with Pinot Noir when it's the Heartbreak Grape? You know, it's like, I think it's with anything that you fall in love with, you eventually get obsessed with it, you know, and often it breaks your heart when it does not work out. For me personally, I'm drawn to anything that's a challenge or that's difficult or that can't necessarily be done. It's like I want to do it. But yeah, when it comes to Pinot in the vineyard, it's probably the most challenging grape varietal to grow of them all. It's very specific as to in what soil types, on what sites, in what climate and what conditions it works. Obviously, you can grow it all over the show, but it's very, very limited as to where it performs well and ends up making a proper wine. So it's very sensitive to disease, to rot. It's extremely sensitive to fluctuating temperatures, be it too hot or too cold. It loves cold more than it loves heat. It's very sensitive to moisture. You need to keep it happy all the time. It doesn't like a lot of heat, a lot of direct sunlight. So very finicky, and it takes everything out of you when you farm a Pinot Noir vineyard to keep on top of it and to keep those vines happy. As if that is not big enough of a challenge, when it comes to the winery, it's no easier. So when it's in the winery, Pinot Noir continues being a difficult wine to make as well. It doesn't like to be transported very far. It doesn't like to wait too long before it gets into the winery. It's extremely sensitive to oxidation. So oxidation is exposure to oxygen. Because it's such a fine and delicate and finessed red wine, you know, any foot you put wrong, be it in the vineyard or in the winemaking, will show in the glass. So it's a non-forgiving grape to grow, but definitely also a wine to make. So from there, it's called the Heartbreak Grape. Many take a stab at it, many fail and keep on trying and keep on trying. It really tests the character of the viticulturist and the winemaker. Can you persevere? Do you have enough patience? Do you pay enough attention to detail? Are you willing to try it again after you failed? You end up being in tears with this wine often, but like when you're in love with something, as I mentioned, is that there's just this drive and something that you want to achieve this. But as I said, why bother when it's so difficult? It's really simple. It is when you pick up your glass of Pinot tonight, that is why we're so obsessed with it. The rewards is just so worth it. What you smell, what you taste, the appreciation of fine Pinots, it's unlike anything else. So even though we end up in tears and fail at it so many times, we just keep on going, and winemakers keep on going at it, just because it's, when you get it right, it's totally a rewarding wine to make. Pinot Noir, just to give you a bit of a global context, biggest plantings of Pinot, it's the 10th biggest in plantings across the world. Not all of it is used for red wine, I have to add. As I said, it's quite limited across the world. There's only a few spots that lends itself to quality Pinot Noirs. So you'll see obviously France, Burgundy, and Alsace, a lot of red wine. But a big part of what you see in France is also out of Burgundy, but also keep in mind a lot of champagnes also include a little bit of Pinot. Outside of France, the US, so Oregon, California, make a lot of Pinot Noir wines, stylistically totally different. Then there's Germany, and followed by a few other countries as well. You'll see South Africa is not even on that list. So in terms of South Africa, yeah, you've got it all over the show, and there's one or two sites that it might work, but predominantly, or the high quality Pinots are from where we're at in the Walker Bay region. Also one or two good examples just across from where I'm sitting in the Elgin region as well. So both those regions, cooler climate works for Pinot, but you can't generalize and say that it, because of cooler climate, Pinot will do well. As I mentioned, there's some other cooler climate regions where it does not work well because of there's not an alignment between soils and climate with Pinot Noir as well. Where we are at, it works. Pinot works, and it's been this region has been well known for producing quality Pinots for many years. Pinot Noir, most of you, I guess, will not know this, but purely out of interest, we've mentioned the parents of Sauvignon Blanc being one of the parents of Cabernet last week. So Pinot Noir, interestingly enough, is one of the parents of a grape that you will know, which is called Pinotage. So Pinotage originated from a crossing of Pinot Noir and Cinsault, which was called back then Hermitage. So what they did back then, back in 1925, Professor Perrault in Stellenbosch, they loved the flavor and the aromatics and the style of Pinot, as we all do, but because it's so difficult to grow, they wanted to look at another grape which was fairly easy to grow and adapted across many soil types and climates, which was a grape called Cinsault or Hermitage. So they made a crossing of the two. So they were looking to capture all the beauty of Pinot Noir, but the easiness to grow of Cinsault or Hermitage, and made a crossing. So from there, the Pinot and the Tage from Hermitage became Pinotage. So Pinotage, obviously not so limited to cooler climates as Pinot Noir, but the Pinotage made in a more elegant style. You'll see a lot of Pinot Noir attributes coming through as well. Pinot Noir globally is very trendy. People love it. It's a very fashionable wine. It's been for a while, but the real aha moment, or what made it all for Pinot, was and they call it the sideways effect in the wine business, is a movie called Sideways. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you have a look for it. It's really a fun movie. It's about wine in California, and in this movie they made a big thing about Pinot Noir, and ever since this movie, almost like the effect of what Bridget Jones's Diary had on Chardonnay, even though that had the opposite effect, this movie just took Pinot Noir consumption and awareness to a whole new level. Pinot Noir wines, also some of the most, not the most, it is the most sought after wines in the world. The most expensive wines in the world are made from Pinot Noir grapes. So I've just checked today again of the top 10 most expensive wines and most sought after wines in the world. 6 of those wines are Pinot Noirs. Another 2 are also from the Burgundy region, but they're white. But just to show you that Pinot Noir, in terms of exclusivity and prices people are willing to pay for them, tops the charts of all wines. So the most expensive bottle of Pinot Noir ever to be sold is from a producer in Burgundy, which is in France. Is a 1945 vintage, if I'm not mistaken, Pinot Noir. It sold for just over 10 million South African rand. So no, you don't get to buy the whole farm. It's one single bottle of wine. It just went over 10 million rands. If you buy those wines today, not that you can get them, they're not available. There's waiting lists on them. You'll pay close to 350,000 rand for one bottle. If that's kind of out of your league of what you can pay for them, they've got a second wine from the same producer, which is the Chardonnay, which is much better priced at 145,000 rand a bottle. So just to give you an idea of some of the prices that Pinot Noir wines fetch across the world. So they are really sought after. Talking of Pinot, much better priced, of a similar quality, is the Benguela Cove Pinot Noir. So this is the wine we'll be tasting today. I hope you've opened yours already, given it a little bit of air. It's the 2019 vintage that we're looking at. But before we talk more wine, let's hand over to Annie to see what she's got in store for us this week to pair with the Pinot. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Johan. Hi, everyone. So for this week's dish, we're going to be making a bacon-wrapped pickled pork fillet. We're just going to be serving that with like a little selection of mushrooms and some cherries. So to start off with, as usually when we make when we pickle something, we're going to start off with the pickling liquids, which is just your normal basic pickling liquids. It's 2 cups of water to a cup of white wine vinegar, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of salt, and then you're just going to bring that to the boil. And then let it cool down, make sure all your sugars, everything is dissolved. And then it's like a little Ziploc bag or a see-through little resealable bag. You're just going to pop your liquid in there. And then I just add some aromatics in there as well, which is some bay leaves, some star anise, a little bit of pickled or some mustard seeds, and a little bit of peppercorns as well. So all your seasoning, all your flavors, everything is in there. And then this I marinated for about 24 hours. It's not necessary to marinate it for that long, but the longer you marinate it for, the more flavor or the more chance it has for all those flavors and everything to develop in there. So I just have some clean wrap that's laid out on the counter. We have our bacon, all the same size, just overlapping just a little bit over there. And we're just going to wrap that up nice and tight. We're going to pop our fillet in there. And then very, very easy, we're just going to use our cling wrap to do that. Make sure you tuck that edges in there nice and tight, and then again just using your cling wrap, roll that up. There you go. And then of course just tie all our edges over there. So normally you'll let this rest in the fridge for about an hour or so, just to make sure everything's nice and set. It's not necessary, but it's always nice and easy. And then while that's resting, you always have a chance just to get all your other ingredients and everything done as well. So we're just going to put that over there for now. And then with our fillet, as I mentioned, we're going to be serving a selection of mushrooms. So we just have a couple of shiitake, so we just quartered. We have some king oyster mushrooms, sorry for that, we just scored a little bit, so when we fry that off in a pan, it just has all that butter and everything and just get in there. So you have like a little bit of a mushroom steak, and then we have our nice little siminji mushrooms as well. So we're just going to toss that in a pan with a little bit of thyme and a little bit of butter and a little bit of seasoning. And then for our cherries, we made a little cherry puree. So it's normally, when you do purees, I just use like frozen cherries. You're going to be blitzing up anyway, so it's no necessary to get all your nice, expensive, fresh cherries in there. So frozen ones is, that's the trick. I don't add any sugars or anything in there, but you want that natural sweetness of the cherries to come through. So again, if you add too much, sugars and stuff in it, then it becomes too sweet, and it's going to alter the flavor of the wine as well, which you don't want. You just want that nice, fresh flavor of the cherries. Yeah, and that's it. And then, like I said, garnish-wise, we just have a couple of mange or like sugar snap peas. We just cut in half. And then I also just have a little bit of potato balls. We just use a Parisian scoop, like a little melon baller, just to add a little bit of something extra to the dish. And that is what we're just going to add to the mushrooms, just fry it off in a pan. So we don't have an hour to let this set and rest, so we're just going to pop that in the pan for now. Just grab some knives. So over a medium heat, nice hot pan, get your oil, and of course we're using our Benguela Cove extra virgin olive oil. Should coat the pan nicely. Pop that out. And then when you put it down, sorry, that messed it up a little bit. Make sure you put it down, all your edges or all the tips down first, to make sure you seal that, and to make sure it sticks all to, it doesn't stick to the pan, and you'll keep all that nice shape that you worked so hard for. So while that's cooking, I'm going to go over to Michelle, who can tell you a little bit more about the wine.
Okay. Hi everyone. So as you guys know, today we'll be tasting the Benguela Cove Pinot Noir. When tasting Pinot Noir, I think it's important to have a little background and just know kind of what you're tasting. So importantly, when it comes to Pinot Noir, we have two main styles of Pinot Noir: a New World style and an Old World style. Old World style normally like coming from France and Burgundy. It's a bit more musty flavors, earthy, floral notes, a bit heavier on the palate as well, and usually they age them quite a bit before actually drinking them. And then you get the New World style that's fresher, fruitier, a bit more like fresh red berries, a bit livelier if you want to call it that. And then the Benguela Pinot Noir then falls into this category. So a bit more red berries. And then also with Pinot Noir, important to note, it's like it's one of the easiest characteristics to kind of know that you're drinking a Pinot Noir, guys, is the color is usually lighter than your normal red wines. And this is just, I think sometimes people kind of think that lighter red wines are lesser in quality, and that's not necessarily the case, especially not when it comes to Pinot Noir. It's just, as Johan mentioned, you work very carefully with it in the cellar. So we don't usually extract too much color from the skins, and also the grape itself is also less prone to a deep red color. It's just an inherent kind of characteristic of the cultivar. And then when it comes to the glassware that you use, I like using this big wide glass, especially because it's so aromatic and fruity and kind of expressive. This just kind of captures all of that flavors. It's easy to evaluate the wine, and also it's a very kind of luscious wine as well. So when you're drinking, it's kind of the bigger rim just coats your mouth nicely and lets all of those Pinot Noir flavors loose. So that's the main reason for this massive glass we're drinking with. So let's get to tasting. You'll smell that it's a very, as I said, very expressive New World style, fresh red berries. It has really nice cherry notes on it, some floral notes as well. And then there's also like this tobacco-iness, like cherry tobacco kind of, if you want to bring the two characters or two aromas together. kind of, for me, stands out in this wine. But then also when you taste this wine, and this is what's really special about our Pinot Noir for me, is it's kind of really, it has like that spiciness as well that you get from the older world style, which is quite unique because it brings kind of the two styles together, which I quite enjoy about it. So nice spiciness, some mushroominess, some smokiness as well, but still that like golden thread is that fresh fruit that's in the wine as well. So that's the Pinot Noir. Delicious. And also it's 2019, so quite a young vintage, but because it's so fresh and fruity, like that's fine. That's what it was made to be. So.
All right, so a lot of those flavors and aromatics you're mentioning is a lot of what Annie's got going there as well. So I can imagine the smell and the aroma back there in the kitchen must be quite something. There's a question or two coming through as well, and while you going and you touched on it, Michelle, is how does this this wine compare? You did touch on it, but maybe just to answer it again, how does this Pinot compare to that of France, Burgundy?
France, yeah. So the Burgundy ones is that old world style that I mentioned. So it's a bit more kind of earthy, musty, mushroomy, kind of less fresh fruit, if you want to call it that. How does it compare to that? So we're quite different when it comes. I did mention it has some of those characteristics, but it's more fruitier, fresher. So that kind of makes it the New World style. But that's fine because that's also what it's meant to be and how it's what the fruit from the farm kind of gives us, which is again just tying in with our whole winemaking philosophy is that we let the wine be what it wants to be. So we don't want to push it to being a Burgundy style if that's not what it wants to be. This is made to be fresh and fruity and drunk, a bit younger and all of that. But yeah, this is quite similar if you want to kind of compare to other regions in the world, New Zealand's the Pinot Noirs and some of the Oregon Pinot Noirs. But there are some producers in South Africa that do produce Burgundy style Pinot Noirs, but as I mentioned, that's just not the style we have going at the moment.
Yep, you couldn't have said it better. And there's also a comment or a question, I think it's more a comment from Emily, is that this will make a lovely red wine for summertime. Would you agree?
Definitely, yes. So also with Pinot Noir, you can drink it a bit colder than normal red wine. So about 2 degrees colder. So between about 12 to 14 degrees would be perfect serving temperature. So normally what I would do is just pop it in the fridge for about half an hour before you open it. Just let it cool down slightly and then drink it. And just helps with that flavors to kind of come alive as well. And also, very nice thing about Pinot Noir is a lot of people that are just starting to drink red wines or tend to drink more white wines find it difficult to drink red wines because it has big like tannin structures and it's a bit difficult on the palate. So Pinot Noir would be one of the perfect wines to kind of start out drinking red wines because it's a lot subtler on the palate, easier to drink. Yeah, so I think if you're starting out on reds, definitely give Pinot a try. You'll definitely like it.
Okay, so there you have it on a rundown on Pinot and how to taste it and what one should be tasting. So I think what is important after what Michelle also mentioned is that we're talking lighter in color, we're talking lower in tannins, more elegance, more finesse, more perfumey notes. And people often have this idea of the more they pay for the wine, the more oaky flavors, the more tannin, the more grippy, the more intense and darker the wines should be. And yeah, we've just told you that the exact opposite is true, that some of the most sought after and expensive wines in the world are those that are super fine and super elegant. So more in a wine isn't always better, you know. And there's many examples of some of the quality producers. The higher up you go in the quality pyramid, the more you pay for their wines. the more finer, the more finessed, and the more elegant those higher end wines become. So don't always look for bigger, plush, show off wines. They are amazing and they get your attention, but after a half a glass, you grow tired of them, you get palate fatigue, and you end up not enjoying it anymore. Where wines that are generally more finessed and elegant and fresh just makes for so much better drinkability and also better enjoyed. So there's a little bit of a takeaway hopefully for you. While that is going, and it looks amazing on the left hand side, let's continue talking Pinot Noir for a bit. So, all right, so last week, no, this wasn't last week, this was 2 weeks ago. All of them seemed to have like a 2 week delay on them. We had some amazing photos and shares for which I showed last week. Hetty was kind enough to share this with us. She had a go at the waterblommetjie breery with the collage, and I must say it's going to be difficult to pick, but I almost want to say that was the pairing without having tried today's one, but that was just such a highlight for me on how that the waterblommetjie breery just brought the collage alive and made the fruit come out, and the interaction was just unlike anything I expected, and it was really and such a fun pairing. Hetty, that looks like something that should go in some sort of a food magazine. It looks absolutely delicious. Well done, and thanks for sharing that. For those who don't have the wine or only joined our episodes at a late stage, we're on our last one, but not to worry, you don't have to miss out. All of them are uploaded onto the Benguela Cove YouTube channel. And we've discussed this between ourselves. We'll keep all the wines that we made a special mixed case for all 6 episodes. We'll keep them going for another month or two. So you can still order them when the ban is away. Order the 6 wines, go and watch the videos on YouTube, taste along, cook along, let us know what you think. So it doesn't stop here tonight. We're keeping those 6 wines, that selection available. And we did a similar tasting and a webinar series in the UK as well. And what we've learned, and it's totally without planning it that way, is that it is such a popular gift for people nowadays, is that they order it. Sarah orders it for Jane as a birthday present or as a gift. The 6 bottles gets delivered with the link onto YouTube. So at your own time and at your own leisure, for a friend or a family member as a gift, birthday present. Lots of corporates using this for gifts for their clients, also sending the 6 bottles of wines with the YouTube video, and at their own time they can look at the recipes, taste the wine. So it's not all lost. You don't have to miss out there. We save all these videos, so get hold of the wines, check them out at your own time, and have fun with them. I'm even willing, what I do quite often, if it is Sarah wanting to send it as a gift to Jane, if you want me to do a quick message or a shout out to Jane, or a happy birthday message, or to tell them, listen, we're from Benguela Cove, you hope you've got your wines, enjoy them. Happy to do a little custom message for you together with your gift as well from Benguela Cove. So talking Pinot Noir more, as I mentioned, Pinot Noir is so finicky when it comes to just about everything, from soil type, slopes, climate, you name it. Benguela Cove, our Pinots that work well and that we use in the bottle are predominantly from schist soils, and a small percentage from like an iron-rich clay soil. As you know by now, we've got various clones, various small pockets of vineyard planted all over the property. What we have in the glass here is a combination of 2 of the Pinot Noir clones. So all of these that you see here, all of these are Pinot Noir, but they're different clones. So different clones have subtle differences, even though they're all Pinot Noir. They have different bunch sizes, they crop differently. Some are more susceptible to disease than others, different berry sizes, so slight differences. So you need to figure out which clones work better in what conditions or on what soils or what rootstocks. And they originate from different parts of the world as well. So slightly different in aroma and taste as well. So clone 115, which is the one on the right-hand side, is known for a lot of red fruit, berry, cherry, raspberry notes, where clone 777 is the Burgundian or the French clone, is more your savory, spicy, mushroomy clone, which obviously is more synonym to what they produce in Burgundy. So this wine that we do is about 80% clone 115. As Michelle mentioned, we're after the freshness, the vibrant fruit, the floral berries and cherries. But to keep it intact with what one would expect from Pinot Noir and the benchmarks out there, the famous ones across the world, we do include a little bit of that earthiness or mushroomy spiciness to it. So it's 80% 115, so it's predominantly red fruit, soft, delicious, but also some of that savory, spicy, smoky notes, if you like, in the wine as well. So it's a blend of those two clones that we use in the estate Pinot. Pinot Noir, again, what we do at Benguela Cove, and we're not unique to it. It doesn't like a lot of heat, a lot of sunlight. It's got an extremely thin skin to it, which also to a certain extent explains the lighter color. So the moment it gets too much direct sun, it gets sunburn. Those berries can shrivel and they just lose their freshness and their elegance, and they become all jammy and confected. So unlike our other reds on the farm, like I showed you when we did the Syrah, these we keep shaded. So they sit in the shade all day long, being quite a sensitive one. We take great care of it in the shade, but we also very, very closely monitor the moisture content in the soils. So we spend a lot of time in the Pinot Noir vineyards, just also checking what we do and are they shaded. We can't have too much shade, because if it's too shaded, the wind doesn't go through the canopy, through the leaves, which makes it to rot, which you also don't want. So you have to strike a balance. But the other thing is to constantly measure the moisture content, which is the photo on the right hand side. So too little moisture, Pinot Noir being the sensitive one, goes into the stress straight away, and it loses all its flavors, its aroma, its acidity. It just throws all its toys out of the cot. When you over irrigate it, too much water, it becomes lean and watery, and you don't have enough richness and intensity. So you really have to keep your finger on the pulse with Pinot all the time. So this is a photo I took this year for the 2020 vintage. As I said, we spend a lot of time in the vineyard tasting Pinot, because it's probably the most crucial thing with Pinot Noir is your picking decision, because you want to push it for as much as possible flavor, but you also don't want to stress the vines and the berries and push it to be too ripe and lose acidity in the process. So we spend a lot of time not only measuring the moisture, but also tasting. So this year, I was walking down these Pinot Noir rows that you see here. It's one of those things, it kind of doesn't look ripe on paper. The analysis that we test, the sugar, the pH, the acidity levels, it doesn't look right, but we always balance that with what we see and what we taste and what the vineyard tells us. So I was walking down these rows, and as I was walking back up, it takes about 5-10 minutes as you zigzag through the rows and taste. And I was kind of feels ready, tastes ready, but I'm not convinced. I'm not quite sure what to do. And as I turned around again, when I got to my car, I had this image, and this rainbow across the vineyard all of a sudden appeared And we just took this as a sign, as, you know what, if this is not a sign of it's ready to go, then I don't know what it is. So we also take the lead of Mother Nature often on these wines. So it was just an amazing moment to see this. So if you ever wondered what is at the end of the rainbow, the end of the rainbow, you'll find a Benguela Cove Pinot Noir vineyard. So look forward to the 2020. All right. In those years that we don't get a sign from a rainbow or from analysis or what we taste, nature helps us again with these little guys that we have a lot of on the farm. They're our snail squad. So every day they are put to work to take care of snails. On Benguela Cove, we try to minimize as far as possible. We're not certified organic, but we surely follow those principles. Is to use minimal pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. So what we do is to use natural predators, be it the ducks or other insects that we release that feed on other insects, just to minimize our chemical intervention and sprays on the farm to keep it sustainable and to keep our soils and our environment happy and healthy. So as these guys patrol the vineyards, they've figured out over the years that Pinot Noir, because of its thin skin, it's really nice to eat, but it's also the first red grape on the farm to ripen. So they know, they figured it out. They spend a lot more time during the ripening period in the Pinot Noir vineyard, knowing that it's first. And the moment they start eating them, you have to be ready to pick, because it's either you pick it or they'll pick it for you. So we have to jump in. So that's always an indicator between them and the guinea fowl. When they start eating, it's a sign of, if they like it, then we should be taking it off. We do get to take a little bit of revenge. You know, we can't just sit back and lose some of our grapes. Pinot Noir happens to be a great pairing with guinea fowl and with duck. So it's not, we equal it out later in the season. It's obviously not true. It's just a joke. The Pinot Noirs are all hand-picked, as I said, quite sensitive to oxidation. So they need to be picked and placed into the crates with great care. So hand-picked at the winery. As you know by now, we do a bunch inspections. All of the bunches are inspected to make sure they're 100% perfect for wine making. What we do with the Pinot Noir that we don't do on any of our other red wines, again showing that Pinot Noir is an animal of its own, and that there's no one recipe that applies across all winemaking, all grape varietals. So Pinot Noir, we do two things differently. We include, instead of removing all the stems and all the berries from the stems, we put what we call whole bunches. So we take the entire bunch as is, the berries on the skin, and put that into the fermenter, and then put some berries on top of that. So for Pinot Noir, we don't crush open the berry. So this is a grape berry that passes through what we call a crusher. So those are two rollers, and it's about half the size of the actual berry. So for the berry to go through, it must be crushed open. So it opens the berry to allow the juice, the inside, which is white in color, to come out. But it also opens the grape skin so that the color, which is in the grape skin, can leach out, you know, like almost like a tea bag effect, and that stains the white juice inside, which then makes it to be red in color and a red wine. So all the color and the tannin that you taste are from predominantly the skin of the berry, but also a little bit from the seeds. Pinot, because it's so sensitive to exposure to oxygen, we don't crush the berries at all. So in this wine, about 20% of it would be the whole bunches, just put into the tank as is with the whole berries. On top of that, we remove its berries that the stems are being removed, but the berry itself isn't crushed. just to protect those inside the juice from oxygen. So what you then have in the fermenter is all this juice inside the berry. So you've got like millions of berries fermenting, and it's like each berry is an individual fermentation going on. And one of the main advantages of doing this, apart from not having exposure to oxygen, is it's a process that we call carbonic maceration. It's the name for the fermentation in these little berries, is that it produces beautiful fruity, especially like red fruit, cherry, raspberry notes, which is exactly what we want in our Pinot and really complements the flavors already coming from Pinot Noir. So by doing this whole berry fermentation, not only do you keep oxygen out, but you further enhance all this nice fruitiness and vibrancy into the wine. So keeping the whole berries, obviously we don't get all the tannins that we want. Pinot already is really, really low in tannin to start with, but by including a certain percentage of these whole bunches with the stems, those stems are packed with tannins and grip and structure that just helps to balance out and to bring it all together. So what we don't get from opening up the skins, we get a bit of grip and structure from the stems that we use. So it's a combination of whole bunches with whole berries on top of that. So not having juice, because all the berries are still whole berries, we can't do what we call pump overs, because we don't have juice, but also we don't want to be doing pump overs like we do on our other reds, because even though on other reds a little bit of oxygen exposure is positive, on Pinot Noir it's not. So we do a technique which we call punch downs. So you've got all your berries in your fermenter, and this punch down arm, which you see on the right hand side, just pushes it down. It keeps on submerging the berries back into what juice might have formed, because every time we punch it down, you also break some of those berries, and it slowly releases the juice back into the fermenter, at which time it's fine, because by the time we break those berries open, fermentation has already started, and one of the byproducts from fermentation is CO2 gas, which is heavier than oxygen, so it protects the berries and the juice and the wine from the oxygen. So it's okay for it to open up and for those berries to eventually burst or be squashed by this punch down arm, because by then we've got enough CO2 to keep the oxygen out. So eventually we can do this type of thing, but we stick to a very closed process. So the bunches, the berries aren't even pumped mechanically at all. They're all placed into these open top fermenters. That's why they are tanks without lids. So we can actually get inside and spread all the bunches and the berries out evenly and have then this arm just moving all over the surface of the tank, just to punch them down and slowly and gently extract. So it's a very soft and very gentle process, which Pinot is. It's a soft and elegant wine. So we also have a soft hand when it comes to the winery making these wines. Once it's finished with fermentation, we take the Pinot Noir to barrel, roughly about 10 months. Again, unlike other wines, which during their fermentation in barrel, we'll take them out of the barrels so they get to take up a little bit of oxygen. We'll put them back in barrels so they take up more oxygen. So it's a process that we call rack and return. So it's just exposing the wines as they age to a little bit of oxygen, which is beneficial to help with the tannins and the color and the development of the wine. As I mentioned, Pinot doesn't like any of that. She's quite temperamental and quite finicky. So we just keep her locked down in the dark, in the barrel for its entire life. We don't touch it or go close to it. So the moment it is pressed and finished with fermentation, it goes into barrel and it will stay there until we take it out right at the end for bottling. And so it goes into the bottle and onto the table as fresh and as vibrant as possible. So from here onwards, the wine is fine. Pinot Noir ages well, but you should really take care of it while growing it making it and bottling it. It takes a skilled hand to understand Pinot Noir and the science behind it and how to go about it to ensure that what's in the glass is something really special, and it just pays off at the end, given all the effort that's gone into it. So that's just a little bit of a rundown on Pinot Noir. I hope it gives you a better understanding of Pinot Noir. I hope these webinars gave you a little bit more insight into wine, how we compare South Africa to the rest of the world, what makes the Walker Bay and specifically Benguela Cove different to everything and everyone else around us. We spend almost about 6 hours talking wine, which is great. If you know me well, it takes a great deal of control to keep it to 6 hours, because I'll just keep on going and going and going. And that's one of the things that I do enjoy as much as I enjoy making wine, is sharing the wines that we make and giving people an insight and an understanding of what goes into wine. So we've only just touched on the tip of the iceberg of winemaking. There's so much more to know and to understand. So yeah, the best would be to come and visit us, to keep the conversation going. I've got my email address on there, my Twitter handle. I've also got Benguela Cove on there if you want to stay up to speed with what is new. We send out a lot of newsletters, information on wine, when we'll be doing tastings like these. But you're more than welcome to also, like many of you have been doing already, and I enjoy getting those emails and chatting to you. Send me an email, send me a direct message, ask me whatever you like. If it's just before you opening the wines for friends and you want a quick insight into the wine, please give me a shout. And as I said, I enjoy chatting to you and sharing anything that we do and what we're so passionate about. So yeah, as you know, our take at Benguela is we quite experimental. As you've learned now, we've got this vision of where we see ourselves and what we want to be, and it's an ongoing journey and a process of getting there. Wine making is not something you'll ever master. You have to keep on improving. Our approach or philosophy is that each vintage should be an improvement on previous vintages. And then I hope during these webinars you also got to learn that yes, there's a lot of science involved in what we do, but a great part, or as big a part of what we do, is also being artistic or being creative. And that's the beauty of wine, is that is where the two breach each other. That is what's in the glass. So no two winemakers, no two vineyards, no two producers will ever make the same wine. So that's the one thing I personally enjoy about wine, is that it's not a constant. Every vintage, every winery, every grape varietal is different, and it keeps it interesting and fun. So as I said, to learn more, to get to know us personally, hopefully when we talk again, well, the last thing that's left to do is for you to come and visit us in Hermanus at Benguela Cove. Got a nice wine tasting facility where the wine ambassadors will tell you all about the wines and what we do and how they're all different. We do amazing wine and food pairings, be it with chocolates, with oysters, with charcuterie, with cheese, and he's got all sorts of tricks up his sleeve. And every about 3 months, we reinvent these tastings and pair them with whatever is available. So a lot of fun, these wine and food pairings that we've got going. Nice outdoor seating as well as indoor seating at Benguela Cove. So bring the family, bring the kids, everyone is welcome. Couple of events that we run. This was from a very successful sparkling wine event that we run every year about November, December, if I'm not mistaken. So keep a lookout for that. Hopefully we'll get to do that again this year. stay up to speed with all of those events, best is to join the mail club, and we'll stay in contact with you on what we're doing when. Unbelievable. I saw already about 2 weeks ago our first bookings for December for the boat trip, and the restaurant already coming in. Can't believe we're heading to that time of the year already. But if you're in the area or you're planning to come down to Hermanus, as I said, the bookings are already coming in, which is kind of bizarre. But I think it just shows all of us, you know, how much we want to get out and do what we usually do and enjoy. So boat trips, we do all these vineyard safaris where we learn you about the vines and growing them, and we obviously taste wines along the way. A big hit on Benguela Cove is our blending sessions where we take you into the barrel room, we taste all the components. You get to blend your own wine, which you bottle, which you take home. So you're a winemaker for a day. Very popular for birthday parties, for corporate groups coming out for team buildings. So something else you might want to do over a rainy day when you can't go to the beach in Hermanus. And then obviously the biggest hit is the Moody Lagoon, where Annie is in charge. So 120-seater restaurant with some of the best views of the Walker Bay, and hopefully the wines live up to the view as well. So this is just to give you an idea of what you'll enjoy from the patio at the Moody Lagoon restaurant. Weddings obviously goes without saying, one of the top spots in the region. Art gallery, so there's really something for everyone. We've got roaming artists, so all over the gardens and the courtyard we've got art exhibition, and they're all available to sell, and it's a self-guided tour. You can go around. For those with kids like myself, Benguela Cove is probably not only in the region, but as far as I know, in the Western Cape, the only child friendly restaurant. So you want to enjoy sitting with your glass of wine, enjoying your meal, do the art walk, do whatever you enjoy. And you can do all of that while the kids are having a blast, playing a little bit of mini golf or playing in our splash pad as well. So definitely kids are welcome at Benguela Cove as well. All right, so when in Hermanus, and for these photos were taken this weekend. There's so much excitement going around town now. This weekend, the first whales were spotted, so they're back, and they usually start coming back this time of the year from now till about November, but we spotted the first ones over the weekend, and it's just amazing watching them do what they do, these gentle giants at play right on the ocean's edge where we're at. Okay, so, and if you, last but not least, if you have so much fun and you don't feel like doing a day trip or going home at the end of the day, remember you can also buy yourself a little piece of Benguela Cove if you like. There's a tiny amount of plots still left, so we've got selected spots scattered all over the vineyard that you can buy a plot and put up a house if you like. Obviously some of the best sunsets in all of Africa. So on the one side, you've got the lagoon, the Atlantic Ocean, and as you turn around through your back window, you've got miles and miles of stretches of vineyard on the other side. So you've got the best of both worlds going on Benguela Cove, should you wish to settle down or get yourself a little holiday spot in Hermanus. Okay, so I think I've been talking a lot. Let's see what Annie is up to again on that side. Annie, have I given you enough time to get that all ready?
Yes, more than enough time. We are ready to go on this side. So we're just going to start plating up very quickly and just going to take you through all the ingredients and why we paired it, all the ingredients in the dish and why it's all paired with the wine. So if you paid attention to all the stuff that Johanna and Michelle said about all the flavors and stuff that you pick up in your Pinot Noir, it's just everything that we kind of try and incorporate in the dish as well, and then luckily it all kind of works together. So they mentioned earthiness, which is why we have our little mushrooms over here. We just have kind of placed down. So we've got our little oyster mushroom steaks. our shiitake mushrooms. We're just going to pop down as well. Again, as I said, it's that nice earthiness that just comes through and out of this. Then we have our little loin. So I just cut a little piece off. So we're just going to pop a little piece of that on there. So this just comes like the smokiness of the bacon, just works beautifully. Again, with that oakiness on the wine. So we have the earthiness, we got the smoke, we got the oakiness, and then again, a little potatoes. It's just for a little garnish, just to spice the dish up just a little bit. And we fry that off in that bacon juices that was on the, or what's left over after we seared the bacon off. And we're just going to pop some of these minji mushrooms on there.
You can use any mushrooms or
any mushrooms. I say you can use button mushrooms, you can use portobellos. This is just everything that kind of came together. So
yeah, I like the different textures you have going.
Yeah, it's all. It
nice.
Doesn't really have that much of a different flavor, but it kind of does. So it does make quite a bit of a difference. And then we have our little cherry puree, which we're just gonna make a couple of dots. And again, this is just like I said, that natural sweetness of the cherries and that berry cherry flavors in the wine. So that just kind of goes with that. Just gonna do a little
Brings the freshness.
exactly.
And the color.
Just to finish the dish off, we made a little bit of a cherry jus, so it's your normal stock, beef stock. And then we just reduced that and then added a little bit of cherries in there. So just going to add a little bit of that on the plate. A little bit of squiggles, because why not? Let's play around with it a bit. And then for a bit of freshness, a bit of greenery, it's just some little sugar snap peas, just to add a bit of green to the plate as well.
I love that it's so simple.
It's very,
such a
very simple. It's
dish,
literally
but
3
so
ingredients
easy,
and then just a little bit of something just to spruce it up a bit. And then, of course, we got our nice fresh cherries. So we're just going to pop 3 little pieces in there.
And they're fresh. You just took out the pip, eh?
Yeah, that's it. Slice it open, took out the pip, and then to garnish it off, we just have a little bit of cress that we're just going to do a little sprinkle over. So it's very, very simple. Like I said, it's literally 3 main ingredients: our mushrooms, our little loin, our bacon, and our cherries. That's it.
That
Simple,
looks
easy, and to the point. And again, everything that you pick up in your Pinot is in there.
all
So,
right.
Michelle, why don't you dig in?
Yeah, I get to taste.
Well done, and that looks amazing. While you guys are trying that, there's 1 or 2 questions that I'd like to answer quickly. Is how do we maintain consistency on the Pinot from year to year? Obviously, there will be very subtle differences because of the vintage conditions, the rainfall, the temperature, the climate during the ripening season. It obviously makes for vintage variations. Having said that, in cooler climates, where it's more, where we grow vines on more extreme vineyard sites, those vintage variations can be slightly bigger, but people understand that it's part of the site and showing where we're from and what that particular year was about. So it's acceptable to have slight vintage variations. But there's always a golden thread and a home style going through all those vintages, a Benguela Cove style. We have various components. We do multiple pickings of a vineyard, so we can still at the end blend out all our components to get to showcase our house style. But it's also important to showcase what a specific vintage in a year was like. That's part of making site-specific wines, is to show what happened in that specific year. So there's another question on, and we discussed it last week. I think this is where it started, that Sauvignon Blanc meant, Sauvignon means sauvage or wild, and Blanc is white, so it's the wild white. So the viewer is asking, what does Pinot Noir mean? So Pinot is French for a pine cone, you know, those, and it's the shape of the bunch is almost, I don't have the picture up anymore, but it's the shape of a pine cone. So that is Pinot is French for that, and then Noir obviously means black, so it's Pinot Noir. So from there, the name Pinot Noir originates from the Burgundy region in France, if you were maybe interested in that. And then, why is Pinot Noir almost more expensive? That's a good question. Um, it's, yeah, I guess the majority, if you take Pinot Noir as an average category, it is more expensive than others, because Pinot Noir, unlike, let's say, Merlot or Pinotage or Shiraz, doesn't have like a high-end category and a lower-end entry-level category as well. There's one or two ones down there, but the majorities of Pinots are at a higher end. And the reason being is that it's so difficult to grow, so difficult to make. It's so limited in where you can make quality Pinots. And then Pinot Noir's production, or the yield, the amount of grapes you get from the vine, is probably half of what you would get from Syrah, for instance. So low yielding, limited, very difficult to produce, and high in demand because it's such a popular wine. So I guess therefore it's also slightly higher priced, but also bear in mind, and I think the biggest driver is all the low yields and all the costs that go into making Pinot, makes it end up being slightly more expensive sometimes, if you want to look at it. So let's see. I think I've got all the questions. Yes. So yeah, thanks for everyone. One last time for joining us. Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Annie, for joining me in hosting these. For all of you watching these, special thanks. Let's stay in touch. As I said, the best way to do that is probably by joining our wine club. We talk to you quite often via the wine club forum. Not only do we get to communicate quite often, you also qualify for some really nice discounts. We send you some special selections 4 times a year to your doorstep. And some of them are wines that we don't sell anymore, that can be from our museum stock, vintages that we've stopped selling maybe like 5 years ago, and we want to show them how beautiful they're aging. Or some wines, even we've got a little range of wines, which is an experimental batch of wines we do, which is exclusively to the guys in the wine club or visiting us on the property. So yeah, sign up for those. We share our events. It'd be good to keep contact with you. And then when we go back to normal, whenever that is, come and visit. Come and enjoy this restaurant. And when you're in the tasting, please ask for me. I'd love to meet you in person as well. Ask for myself or for Michelle. It would be great fun to meet you and to maybe cheers a glass of wine together. All right. All the best. Take care, and hopefully we see each other soon. All the best. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.